Staff recommends approval subject to conditions.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
This is Forrest Sting. I'd like to thank the applicant and the committee for continuing this until I could be in attendance. And I am excited about what I see. Patty, I have a couple questions. We started off by saying it's 2 structures that will be demolished, but are the only building one structure?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
Only one structure.
Okay.
Except for the fact that the parking structure is considered somewhat of a structure.
Okay, that was going to be my next one. So the entry into the building is from under the garage, right? There's not a gap in the garage where you have to come out and then go to the building?
This is a view of the east elevation. So if you were standing here looking at this east elevation, you would be essentially standing on the top level of that parking structure. So the main parking is on that top level of the surface of the parking structure.
So you have to come out and go across to get into the building? There's no entrance to the building from the garage?
I will let the applicant speak to that. If there were, it would be into a level lower, like a basement level. Okay. Because at this point, if you're entering these doors, and this is the main entrance on the east elevation, you would be able to park within that parking top level of the parking structure, which is kind of looks just like a surface parking lot.
Okay.
But the applicant will have to answer as to whether or not there's access from the lower level into the building.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
And Patty, just to clarify, you did say that the corrections they made to this east elevation you approve of, and so they can move forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so at this time, let's go ahead and introduce the applicant for this case. Joe, do you mind promoting them up?
I did promote Brett Cox. Not aware if there's another person on the applicant team I need to promote or not.
Joe, this is Brett. Could promote Mick Slutter.
Okay.
And I believe Greg Heibarger, the architect, is on the phone.
Okay, is he I don't want to read his whole number, but it ends in, is it 3364? I'm assuming that's him. I'm going to promote him.
Let's see. Yes, that is him.
Okay. He should be able to speak now.
And then is Jamie Boyle on as well?
I don't see anyone by that name.
Okay. Wasn't sure if Jamie was going to make it. Jamie's the president of Welcome House.
Okay.
But thank you, Commissioner and staff. Brett Cox with Renaissance Infrastructure, 5150 Canal Street, Riverside, Missouri. Appreciate the staff report that Patty has presented. Don't want to delay this much longer. If you could answer the question about access from the garage into the structure.
Yeah, this is Greg Heibarger with HD Architecture, 15225 Broadmoor, Overland Park, Kansas. I assume I can be heard?
Yes.
Okay. So to answer the question about access from the parking structure into the facility, it is at grade, so the top level you would walk across the parking and into a set of doors, entry doors on the east elevation. From the lower level garage area, you will have to walk outside upstairs. There is not an access from the lower parking area into the building, which the lower parking area is mainly intended for staff of Welcome House.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. We are here we really don't have a presentation. We're here to answer any questions. There are a few conditions that we would like modified and removed.
Okay,
The first one, condition number 3, talks about compliance with the Parkway and Boulevard standards. And it says apply to Paseo and West Paseo. We are asking for a waiver, a variance from the Parkway and Boulevard standards for the Paseo, as Patty had mentioned. So we'd like that revised to remove the Paseo.
Staff is agreeable to the removal of conditions.
And then condition number 20 talks about a stormwater management agreement. This is going to be one lot. The stormwater system will be covered with a BMP easement, so we feel that can be removed. Item number 22, this is more just a technicality, but there's existing public sewer and storm sewer adjacent to the site, so no public extensions are required. Number 23 is a duplicate of number 20. And then number 24, this one's kind of important, talks about impact fee. This is in an exempt impact fee zone. And so we would request that number 24 be removed as well.
These are conditions of Land Development Division. And as I mentioned, they probably should have been dealt with back in May when the DRC disposition was issued. So I don't know if there's anyone in this call from Land Development Division who can speak to removal of these conditions, but I personally don't feel comfortable doing that. Have you had conversation, Brett, with Luke?
I have not heard back from anyone.
Okay. We may have to proceed to council and you have to deal with them in the meantime, or request the council remove them. I don't personally feel comfortable removing these.
okay. So let me just go back so I can make sure I have my notes written down correctly. Number 3, we're saying that you're doing a waiver on the site, so just to remove that condition altogether, and staff is okay with that, from what I understand.
No, we're okay with, we are in complying on the West Paseo.
Okay,
We just want to remove the Paseo from that condition because we're asking for variance there.
so just remove Paseo.
Correct.
Okay,
Well, I think you comply on the West Paseo, and the Paseo, I think we've agreed that you are mitigating the effects. So we, as staff, are recommending approval of a waiver to that. Maybe it just needs to be reworded, and I can work on that with Brett.
Okay.
okay. So it's going to stay, you're just looking for a waiver on the actual West Paseo Boulevard piece.
Right, because I have, yeah, I think we just need to record that to state exactly what we're agreeing to here with the waivers for the Paseo elevation.
Okay, so then moving to number 20, it was because you're going to have a BMP in place, BMP easement, that it would be in lieu of this covenant agreement.
Correct.
Is a request, and since we don't have representation from Land Development Department, not sure how to address that. Or do you feel comfortable with that one, Patty? Or do you want to wait on LDD?
I personally don't. Joe may be able to speak to that, but I don't know the ins and outs of, so no, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so this situation is we were made aware of the applicant's concerns with these conditions late last week. It was after Land Development Division's manager, Stacy Lowe, who normally attends CPC, had left the office for her vacation, which is where she's at today. So my suggestion would be is, listening to some of them, I think some of them are things that she may be okay with. I just don't know. We've not had the chance to run this by her.
Okay.
So I agree with Patty that we should probably keep them, and it would certainly be not a problem at all to do a committee substitute ordinance when this gets to council, if she agrees to changing them or deleting them.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Mr. Cox?
Sure. Can we at least remove 23? It's a duplicate.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think seems like that's okay. All right, does the commission have any questions for the applicant? So let's go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. Joe, do we have anyone in the audience that has raised their hand to speak on behalf of?
Yeah, we have someone named Jeffrey Parks who's raised their hand. I'm going to go ahead and promote him.
Okay.
Should be able to speak now, Jeffrey.
Is it possible, Patty, to go ahead and there we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not wearing this shirt because it's a Zoom meeting. I actually work for them, but I just I appreciate the opportunity to ask a couple questions here.
Okay. Do you mind stating your name and address, please?
Yeah, Jeffrey. Yeah, Jeff Parks at 2632 West Paseo Boulevard,
Okay.
KCMO 64108. Just curious about a couple things. There's a lot of talk about like the eastern elevation. How tall is this building on the west side of the lot?
Yeah, this is Greg Heibarger with HD Architecture. On the west side of the lot, above grade, it will be approximately 22 feet.
Gotcha. And are those trees going to go away that are in front of it now?
Yeah, due to the construction, they'll be removed, and then new trees will be replanted.
Okay. And then what are the like date and like days and hours of construction operation going to be over there? Like how early in the morning are y'all going to be getting started?
Well,
go ahead, Greg.
We typically can work that out. A normal construction day is it somewhat changes based on summer versus winter because of sunlight and temperature. So roughly 7 to 3 is a typical construction day.
Cool. I prefer 8 being right across the street, but I get it. All right, that's all for my question. Oh, go ahead.
Sir, before we start construction, those hours can be worked out. We're a ways from making that from pushing dirt for a while yet. So I think there's time to work with the neighborhood to make sure that the hours of operation are in compliance with your wishes.
Well, thank you. I would, like I said, I would prefer 8 o'clock, but anyway, building looks great. So thank you all. That's it for my questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Is there anybody else that's raised their hand?
No, Mr. Chair, no one's raised their hand.
Commissioner Crow, if I could add, I did find that east elevation, and I'm sharing that with you now.
I'm sorry, having a hard time understanding you.
I did find the east elevation of the structure. The gentleman just asked about the east elevation.
Okay.
So that is shown here. As you can see, there's a veranda on the second level. The bottom level is actually, which you see from the east elevation, is below grade at this point. But this is the view from Mr. Parks' property.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and close public testimony. And are there any other comments from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, can I confirm? I thought I heard Patty say that there had been 2 meetings with 2 different neighborhoods, or was she just referring to the Beacon Hill McFetters neighborhood?
I'll let Brett expound upon that? I know he said there were 3 different neighborhood groups in attendance
Okay, yeah.
that I heard from the Beaconville McFetters.
And he had gotten a letter of support from one of them, right?
Correct. That would be from the Evans Beacon Hill McFetters Community Council.
Correct. Yeah, we held, I don't remember if it was Zoom or what, but a meeting like this on Saturday the 6th. There was the Beacon Hill McFetters. There was the Beacon Hill Homes Association. And Greg, do you remember the name of the third one?
Yeah, the third one was a subset of the Homes Association. It was the Architectural Review Committee.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Basically, that's one neighborhood association. They've just broken
Right.
down into 3 different arms. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments by the applicant?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So at this time, we'll close testimony and leave the meeting open for the commission for discussion. If there is no discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve, what is this? Number 16-00068 as presented by staff with the number 3 condition removed and conditions 20, 22, 23, and 23 also removed, and 20, 22, and 24 to stay for the land development group to review.
Okay. Was condition 3, were you going to rewrite that, Patty, or is that just go ahead and remove it altogether?
No, I think we can rewrite it appropriately
Okay.
to address what Brett and I have agreed upon.
Okay. So condition 3 will remain with changes to the language as agreed upon by Patty and Brett. Are you okay with that?
I agree with that, yes.
Okay. So I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on docket item 16? Hearing none. Lisa, do you mind taking roll call on the motion?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, looks like the motion approves 8-0. Sounds like a great project and good luck with it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Yep, thank you. How's everybody doing? Do we need a 5-minute quick break and come right back? Is everybody all right with that, or you want to keep going? I see one head saying yes, we need a little break. So let's do that. So it's 4:50 right now. If we can be back before 5 o'clock, that'd be great. So when you get back, go ahead and turn your video back on so I know everybody's back. Okay. Thank you.
I talked to Congressman Jim Clyburn about this last week. If you can't get everything that you'd like to see in a police reform bill, but you get a couple of things in a bipartisan bill and it gets sent to the president, is that okay with you? Knowing that you can maybe come back later and try again for what you did?
We're getting close. I think we only have 5 left.
Would it be possible to group the next two together, or is that not? Since it's the same property and the same request.
Yes, that is what I was planning to do. You'll have to make 2 separate motions, but I'm going to present it all together.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'll probably just have to do the motions separately, but they can hear the case together. Okay, it kind of looks like we have about everybody back. Forstein, are you back? I think we've got a quorum already going. Joe, you back?
Yep, I'm here.
So let's go ahead and get started, if you don't mind, on case number, what are we on, 17 now?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll call both of these. 17 is case number SUP 2020-00008. Request to approve a special use permit for a type 2 short-term rental year-round in District R5 at 5619 Northeast 51st. Docket item 18 is a request to approve a special use permit for the same type of short-term rental at 5617 Northeast 51st Street. Patty Knowles, the planner.
Okay, Patty, you're on mute here, so we can't really hear you.
Okay, I'm back. As suggested by Commissioner Baker, I'm grouping the next two cases together, CDSUP 2020-00008 and CDSUP 2019-00052, because they do involve the same property, which is located at 5617, 5619 Northeast 51st Street. It is a duplex structure. Access is by a drive extending off of Northeast 51st Street. The area consists of other duplexes as well as some single family homes across the street. This is the property, fairly deep lot. Parking is located at the rear of the structure. The applicant requests approval, special use permit for type 2 short-term rental, which means that he does not reside in the structure. The City Plan Commission is reviewed and recommended by, makes some recommendation to Board of Zoning Adjustment. There is no site plan required in this case by the applicant. The applicant has held a Zoom meeting, public engagement. There was one person in attendance. There is a Maple Park Neighborhood Association record, but there is no contact information. Apparently they have not completed the neighborhood registry requirements. However, we did receive a request for information from Northland Neighborhoods, Inc. And I put them in contact with the applicant, Mr. Scarborough, and I believe they had a conversation. So the applicant requests approval of the special use permit. The property is located on about a half an acre. As I said, the parking access is shared with the adjacent property to the west. The staff typically recommends approval of a short-term permit such as this for a period of 2 years. After that time, the applicant is then aware and able to come back and make an application for a longer period of time if justified. It allows the neighborhood and the adjoining property owners to weigh in at that point, or there are other means to do so if there are issues, of course. So with that, staff recommends approval subject to the condition that the approval be granted for a period of 2 years. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission to staff?
Patty, it's Bruce Ellender here. What was the outcome of the discussion with the neighborhood association? Do we know?
Well, the Maple Park Neighborhood Association is the association of record, but as I said, they have not filled out the neighborhood registry form, so we don't know the name of the contact person or any phone numbers or emails. But I will let Rob Scarborough. I haven't talked to him since then. I don't know if he did in fact have a conversation with Northland Neighborhoods, Inc., but I talked extensively with Ed Linnerbor and explained the project to him. So I'll let Rob elaborate on.
So the first question there, I had no contact with the Northland Neighborhood Group. I received no calls. I had no discussions. I did want to bring up Maple Park Neighborhood Association. I've mailed them a couple times throughout this process. I don't know if it'll show in the video, but it says no longer exists. And that came back through the Postal Service. So I don't know what the story there is.
Okay. Robert, do you mind introducing yourself, giving us your name and address, please?
Sure. Rob Scarborough, and I live at 603 Quincy Boulevard in Smithville, Missouri.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to present to the commission about these two cases?
I'm happy to answer any questions, but no, I think Patty did a great job describing the neighborhood. It's a lot of rental properties, so the owners are out of town, out of state. So getting signatures was not a realistic possibility.
Okay, and you agree with the one condition on both cases?
The 2-year license, yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony. Joe, has there been anybody raise their hand on behalf of the docket items 17 and 18?
Mr. Chair, I haven't seen anyone raise their hand. No.
Got one more case.
Okay. So at this time, we'll go ahead and close public testimony. And so we'll just go ahead and close the testimony altogether and be amongst the commissioners for discussion. And if there is none, then I look forward to a motion on both cases.
Chairman Crowell and any staff members, I'm just curious how often these come up and what the precedent has been so far.
So Joe, I'll let you answer that because.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
You're fine. I was just wondering how frequently these have come up. I remember reading about it, a few years ago whenever the city council or whomever voted on banning short-term rentals. And I was just curious what, going forward, I don't see any issues personally with this one at all. I just wanted to take this as an opportunity to get a sense for what precedent is going forward.
There's not very many. There were several kind of right out of the gates when the ordinance first passed. And I would say somewhere between, 1 and 3 every few months. Would you agree, Patty?
That is correct. Many of these go through the administrative approval process if they are able to obtain 55% consent of their adjacent neighbors. The ones, as Rob mentioned here, there are several absentee owners here, so he was not able. So you'll see quite a few of those of cases where the applicant cannot receive the 55% consent for some reason. Not necessarily that people are opposed, although you'll see some of those, but mostly it's because it's just not possible to contact them and receive a note back.
And as a follow-up, do you have any examples of situations in which the commission decided that it didn't make sense to approve?
They have recommended denial on a couple, although off the top of my head, I don't remember what the basis for those recommendations were.
Thanks. I was just curious if there were any common things we should look out for, but I have no problems with this and ready for a motion if no one else has any other thoughts.
This is Forrest Thing. I think I came just as we were starting back up. I need to confirm this is an existing structure. He's not trying to build anything. He just wants the special use permit.
Forrest, kind of having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me better now?
No.
No?
No.
Well, I don't know. Well, wait a minute. Let me see. Is that better?
A little bit.
How about now? I'm trying to turn the volume up.
Okay. Let's give it a shot and see what you got.
Well, I think I got you louder.
Yeah.
So just to confirm, we're talking about short-term rentals. Are we talking about B&B?
No, we're not talking about B&B.
So what is meant then by short-term rental?
Well, short-term rental, Forstine, I believe B&B, like a bed and breakfast. Or are you speaking of
Airbnb?
Yes. This is commonly referred to as various companies have different platforms, Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway. Okay. So this is an existing duplex structure and the applicant wants to rent out both sides. He has 2 separate applications. But
yes, I'm following that. Okay. I'm good. I just wanted to confirm we're not constructing something and what the term was for short-term rental. So I'm okay.
Okay. So I think we're ready for a motion then.
Chairman Crowell, I move to approve docket items 17 and 18 with conditions.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Baker.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. I don't think there's any further discussion. So Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Looks like she stepped out.
okay. Rojas,
Paul, you're on mute again. If you don't mind unmuting yourself. If you can just give me a thumbs up or down on the screen, that'd be great. He said yes.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion approves. Both 17 and 18 have been approved, 7-0. Thank you and good luck with your projects.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next item is docket item 19, case number CPC 2020-00072. Request to approve a preliminary plat on about 10,000 square feet, generally located at 9130 McGee Street, to allow for the subdivision of a tract of land with 3 underlying platted lots into 3 single-family lots in District R7.5. Patty Knowles, the staff planner. Patty, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm trying to work around the dogs here. The applicant proposes a preliminary plat to essentially recreate 3 existing lots. The property is located at 9130 McGee Street in South Kansas City. As you can see, it is largely within a residential area zoned R-7.5. This is an aerial view of the property. The property is currently undeveloped, vacant. The applicant states that to his knowledge, there has never been a home constructed on this property. The 3 lots upon which the applicant intends to build 3 single-family homes were platted at some point, probably in the late 40s, early 50s, as 3 single-family lots. The development pattern in the area has been such that the older homes of the earlier eras are built within upon those 3 lots. Homes of the era 60s and 70s are most often built on 2 lots, and the applicant proposes construction of 3 homes, 1 on each lot here. The surrounding land uses are all single-family residential with various properties that have become vacant over the years. The applicant held a video Zoom conference with 7 members of Center Planning and Development present. I believe that Center Planning and Development is requesting a continuance of this case to the meeting of July 14th. I know that Sherry Elliott has had trouble getting into Zoom. I've been speaking with her in the past few minutes here, so I'm not sure if she's on yet or not. This is a view of the property looking southwesterly. 92nd borders the property on the north, and then McGee Street borders the property on the east. As you can see, there are homes of varying ages. Adjacent is an older, smaller home, and then south of that is probably a fairly recently constructed home. This is looking south on McGee. Streets are narrow, unimproved, no curb gutter, sidewalks. This is the proposed preliminary plat that would recreate these 3 lots. The applicant proposes a single garage entry, 1 driveway. So the homes, I do have an elevation of these homes. The homes would then be constructed. There are certain waivers requested, and one of those is a waiver to the required side yard setback of 15 feet to allow the north wall to be located 2.5 feet from East 91st Terrace. And the applicant also requests variances of interior side yards to allow provision of 2.5 feet as opposed to the 4 foot that would be required. This is somewhat difficult to see, but it's an elevation of homes that the developer has built in the neighborhood. He has 3 very similar structures farther to the north on Grand. And then we do have some slides that have been submitted by the applicant, so I will let him present those with his presentation. As I said, the property was originally platted as the 3 individual lots. When these lots were platted, the lots complied with the subdivision regulations that were in existence at the time. The subdivision regulations were first enacted in 1954, and then later the Zoning and Development Code was then required a minimum lot width of 50 feet. So these lots are only 25 feet in width, while the current code requires a minimum of 50 feet in width, and therefore they are considered non-conforming lots. We have a provision of the code that says that non-conforming lots can be developed upon if they were lawfully created, which, as I stated, they were lawfully created at some point before the Zoning and Development Code required a 50-foot minimum lot width. So if that is the case, then there is a provision that would allow the applicant to construct homes on each of those lots, except for the fact there's a somewhat contradictory provision. And I won't go into detail, but staff worked with the council over the past 2-3 years to try to change that. But what that provision says is that if these lots are adjacent, they're non-conforming, which they are, they're less than 50 feet. They are considered to be, and if they're under the same ownership, they're considered to be one lot. So that's why this applicant is requesting that we re-establish those lots. That could be done administratively under that provision of the code if they were 30 feet in width. But again, in this case, they're not. They're only barely 25 feet in width. So we cannot administratively approve the creation of these 3 lots. So therefore, the applicant must go through the preliminary and final plat process. So staff believes that our review is limited to preliminary plat provisions. We are not making a recommendation based upon as we would if it were a request to rezone. Therefore, density is not necessarily considered as a factor. A question arose as to whether or not we would require this applicant to amend the area plan, but rezoning is not required, so therefore the density is not an issue. Again, the applicant also requests a waiver of square footage for each lot. 2,500 square feet are required. The lots are only 4,003 square feet each. And then also waivers to allow the lots to be less than 50 feet are requested. In addition to the, as I mentioned, side yard setback waivers. The plan does provide the required adhere to the maximum 40%. The Zoning Development Code states that a maximum of 40% of a front yard could be paved. In this case, the applicant is right at 40%. So there is not a waiver requested for that. So requested waivers are lot area, minimum lot width, required side yard. Staff does believe that the lots were originally platted in this configuration and that the developed area has developed with a mixture of homes, some on 3 lots, some on 2 lots. In the interest of achieving density in the city, we believe that this is a proposal that is worth consideration. It allows people with larger or who don't necessarily desire large lots to reside within an area, people who don't necessarily want to mow, or maybe they have less demand for yard area. people of varying incomes and family sizes and stages in their life can stay in an area and may not necessarily need the larger homes. So therefore, staff is in favor of the request to approve this preliminary plat. The preliminary plat must go through the city council approval because waivers are requested. And then after that, the applicant will submit a final plat application for your consideration. And then that also goes on to council. So staff recommends approval of this preliminary plat subject to the 18 conditions as shown. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Are there any questions from the commission to city staff? Go ahead, Tyler.
I'll go on. Patty, you mentioned that this developer has done similar developments in this neighborhood. Can you speak to those at all, or how many? I was just trying to look at Google Maps and I was having a hard time finding single lot homes that looked like this. And so to me, this looked very different and atypical relative to the rest of the neighborhood. But I was wondering if you had any examples of similar developments.
I will let the applicant speak to the exact address, but yes, the issue with Google Maps is that it's not up to date enough to reflect those lots that have been built on.
Okay, thanks.
So I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First thing, I didn't hear anything regarding the fire department with them being built this close together. Do we need something from the fire department?
Okay, fire department. Yeah, we're still having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, I heard her. The building and fire code require, or I'm sorry, the building code requires a minimum 10-foot separation between structures unless they're, the applicant uses fire rated walls of construction, which they will have to do in this case. So it's a building code requirement that there be a minimum 10-foot between structures.
Okay. And did we say anything about them doing sidewalks?
Yes, the developer will be required to, as a condition of approval, construct sidewalks and improve both the perimeter streets, East 91st Terrace and McGee, to standards which include curb, gutter, sidewalks, street lights if necessary. I believe there are street lights there. And of course, they'll have to relocate any utilities as necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and introduce the applicant.
I did promote the applicant, and Lonnie Shanks is one of them, and the property owner himself, I believe.
Okay, applicant, if you don't mind saying your name and address, please.
My name is Emil Brown, address 4741 Central Street, Kansas City, Missouri, 64112, Suite 539.
Okay.
I heard someone mention that they would like to see some of the projects we've done in the area. If you Google 9208 Grand Avenue or 9210 Grand Avenue, you should be able to see those. A similar structure, except these have a basement, and the ones we're proposing on McGee does not have a basement. And all three of these are sold.
Okay.
So I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody. It's late in the day, and I'll try to, for the sake of, I know you have other cases on the addendum here, so I'm gonna try to speed up as fast as I can. I had kind of a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm kind of just trying to get to some of the points here, what we're trying to accomplish here. So in building in this area over the last several years, we've done a lot of homes in this area also to the east side, now that'd be the west side of Warrenville. So based on our experience and the market, this area, which is Southlands Addition, if you can see parcel viewer, there's tons of land in this area that have been pre-platted back into, I think Patty said 1950, at 25-foot lots. So now with that being said, that presented a challenge to us to accommodate not only our cost to build, but also to have a product out there that's affordable and attainable that doesn't limit our buying pool for folks who may have a problem getting financed via conventional or different kind of loans that's out there. So we've also done homes on 91st and Grand, which are larger. I think one address over there will probably be 9108 Grand Avenue, I think. They're all in the same subdivision. And so what we run across with the 9108 Grand is that we have a larger home, but we have a smaller buying pool because the cost has to go up. Now, and the question about the density, and we've thought about this for a while, and it's not going to be an issue as far as density because you don't lose your yard. You have a yard. What you lose in width, you gain in length. So you have a longer backyard versus a wider backyard, and also in your front yard. And so with the one-car garage, you also reduce street traffic. You know, when you have a driveway with a one-car garage, you're less likely to have more cars parking on the street. If you have a two-car garage, as in an area, you'll see a lot of people tend to hold a lot of cars that probably are not useful or anything like that matter, just sitting in the driveway. So, and we've also done a slide. I think Patty has some of it and probably shows some of the pictures that popped up. And some of the lots in the area that are vacant, that has been, you know, just a blight in that community for some time. Become dumping areas. You know, this is right down the road. If I'm looking at the same picture, that's a vacant house right down the road from this area right here. So, you know, I think in order for this community to continue to grow and improve these areas or these lots, small 30, some of them are not, all of them, a lot of them are not conforming. But to accommodate that, we have to find someone who's willing to take the chance to build on these things. And I think we found something that works for a larger buying pool, especially in today's market, and the folks trying to get approved for their first homes or professionals in the area. Because Kansas City is a growing area and folks need to find a house. And our price point would put below the national average of $231,000, which I think is in the Kansas City or greater Kansas City metro area. These price points, we're looking at $215,000 to $225,000. So I don't have anything else to add to that. I appreciate you guys' time and taking the moment to hear us out. On the call, I have our attorney and I have our architect here who's also involved in the process. And we also have our realtor too to add more viewpoints other than just mine. And I'm open to any questions from the committee.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Quick one, following up on the width in between the buildings. Can you speak to that really quickly? Again, it looks like there's about 5 feet in between those. And I just am very unfamiliar with what fire department requires. Can you just talk about that?
Well, how this works is you have to have a width of 10% of your lot. So if it's a 50 foot, if you build on 50 foot, you have to have 5 feet. So by this only being 25, we acquired to have 2%. 10% of the side yard, which is 2.5 feet, because it's a 25-foot wide lot. And as far as fire, I heard that mentioned. In the other homes that we built, we haven't had an issue with fire department, but we do because the houses are in such such close proximity. We have a fire rating we have to do within our walls.
This is Joe here. Just to jump in on that again. The fire department doesn't individually review every setback request. They're covered by the building code, which Patty already referenced. They have to be separated by 10 feet or build a fire rated wall for fire safety purposes. So they're going to have to do that in this case, and he's aware of that.
Thanks for clarifying.
I just want to say I really like these projects. I think as someone who's in that price range market, I think we need more of those throughout Kansas City. So thanks for bringing this to the commission.
Thank you, our pleasure.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none. Joe, let's go ahead and open it up for public testimony. Do we have anybody on the call that's raised their hand and would like to speak?
Yeah, Carol Winter Road has raised her hand. I'm going to go ahead and promote her.
Okay.
Carol, you should be able to speak momentarily.
Is it possible to turn off the shared screen so we can see the public testimony? See Carol?
Yes.
Let me unmute you just a second.
I believe you're unmuted.
Let's see, we're gonna screen, just a second.
You are unmuted, so if you want to go ahead and speak, you can.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Oh, we are unmuted. All right.
Okay.
You are unmuted, yes.
Hi. Thank you. This is Carol Winterroad, and I'm president of Center Planning and Development Council, which is an umbrella group of neighborhood associations in Kansas City. We have serious concerns about this project, and therefore we are asking for a continuance so we can study certain issues related to it. For example, there right now are 2 code violations that have been reported on this developer. And there's also an Ethics Commission complaint in progress. This is to allow us more time to look into the code violations for building permit conditions relating to lot splitting. In this area, there are extremely small lots, and there are a lot of them. Now, during the public engagement process, one of the neighbors talked about water issues. And as we were looking into that, we found that that Dykes Branch stream is fairly close to this project. So we want to try to determine if a stream buffer plan is required in this project. So it will take us some time to look through all the facts in relation to this. So we would like a continuance of at least a month if possible.
Okay. Any questions from the commission for Ms. Winterroad?
I guess I don't have questions for Ms. Winterroad. I just wanted to understand if the staff understood what those code violations are or have any insight to that.
Yeah, we're aware of the code violation requests. I could get into it if you need me to. I'm not sure how relevant that will be to your decision. It'll take a few minutes.
Yeah, let's keep moving forward, but maybe take a look at that.
And then with regard to the stream buffer issue, we do evaluate on every project whether a project is subject to the stream buffer regulations, and this one is not. It lies, the regulated stream would need to go through the property or close enough to it where the buffer would encroach the property, and it does not in this case.
It impacts.
Okay.
Hey, Joe or Patty, I have a question about the process here. Am I understanding correctly that they're asking for, I guess, deviations from the lot and building standards? Is that what they're asking for? Because the staff report talks about waiver of subdivision requirements, but I think we're talking about lot width and area, which are lot and building standards. So I'm not really following.
Okay, yes, so I've received your emails. So maybe if you could advise us on, should we call it waiver, deviation, or variance? But yes, they're requesting something different from the required lot area, side yard setbacks, and lot width.
Okay. Typically, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically you would need to request a deviation from anything in the 100 series, which would be the lot and building standards. And that would need to be done with a development plan. But I just saw the references in the staff report to the subdivision provisions in the 400 series. So I'm just trying to figure out,
I think we've had similar cases. Maybe we need to discuss this offline, but we've had similar cases to this that we've processed.
Okay. Okay. That's new. I'm not familiar, but you're telling me that you're asking to approve waivers of lot and building standards. Is that
You want to know why? You want to know why?
That is correct.
Okay. I don't understand that, but
You click on again.
Can I rebut Carol? And I think some team members, our attorney probably wants to rebut Carol also.
Yeah, let me finish up with any other public testimony, and then we'll come back to you, Mr. Brown, so you can rebut the comments that they've made, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other public testimony?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's someone named Curry Sexton that I promoted to speak.
Okay.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Curry Sexton, and I am the attorney for Emil Brown and the applicant's team. And I was going to respond to Ms. Winterrode's comments. I was not allowed to speak earlier. I was not moved forward earlier to speak on behalf of Emil. But I do think, and I think it's already been alluded to, but I do think that the issues that individuals within the city planning and development council have are irrelevant to the 9130 McGee application. The individuals who have raised complaints are concerned about the issuance of permits related to the properties at 9108 Grand, which again is both a moot issue and an irrelevant one with respect to 9130 McGee. And so the applicant would strongly oppose the request for a continuance to July 14th. We have actually had 2 Zoom conference meetings with Center Planning and Development and have received extensive feedback, have listened to their thoughts and opinions, and have appreciated all the feedback that we've received. But again, we would oppose any request for a continuance.
Okay. Any other public testimony, Joe?
So can I ask Mr. Sexton a question?
Sure.
So you said that you heard all of their concerns. How were they addressed?
Well, Ms. Beasley, I think it's hard to address the concerns that relate to properties that have already had homes built on them, and for which the houses have been sold already. And so again, the issue is both moot and irrelevant. Now, the Center Planning and Development, a few of their members have communicated concerns about density with this development. And again, I think we've heard from Patty and from others that the construction of these homes is important to this neighborhood. But I think it's also important to note that, and I think Patty does have a couple of slides that we sent to her that illustrate we've received some pushback from 2 individuals with Center Planning and Development in particular, and those individuals are not individuals who live in close proximity to 9130 McGee. In fact, they live about a mile and a half away. We have not received any negative feedback from any of the neighboring property owners. And just to continue on that on that same note, with the similar developments that Emil and his team have performed in the area, they have consistently received overwhelmingly positive feedback for many of the reasons that have been described already on here today.
But we're looking at, excuse me, an actual neighborhood. Is Center Planning an actual neighborhood for this area that these citizens live in? Not necessarily neighboring neighbors of the property that's being developed.
Yes.
Yes.
What? Speak up, ask him to hear.
What is your question?
No, I was asking, he was saying that you live a distance from this property. My question isn't city planning, is it the actual neighborhood association for this area?
It is. Yes, ma'am, it is.
Therefore, they have a concern regardless of where they live within that neighborhood.
There is not.
They don't have to be a neighboring neighbor of the property.
and again, we recognize that and we appreciate that, and we have and again we've engaged in extensive dialogue with Center Planning and Development over the course of the last 4 weeks.
Can you get in?
Can I answer that question?
Hold on a second.
There is not an immediate neighborhood association right in that area, but Center Planning encompasses that area totally. And we have several people who've been trying to get in to this meeting today, but have had trouble, including Sherry Elliott, who's done a lot of research on this. This area is a sub. Yes,
she can't get in.
I know, I'm telling them she can't get in. But this area has over 1,000 lots that are very small. They're 24.5 inches by 142 inches. These are very small lots. This developer is buying a lot of these lots to do this kind of thing. And these 3 houses that he's already built are like row houses. And it is not in character with the neighborhood at all. And we're very afraid that if this plan goes through with all these variances, or not variances, but whatever you're calling them, that there's going to be more of this by this developer. So we would like that opportunity for a continuance, so we can really look at these code violations. And there's also an ethics complaint, and this is not a simple request. So anyway, we are still holding to the continuance to study this further to see what the legality of all of this is. These houses are so different from anything else in the neighborhood, which is, in other words, of all these lots, it takes 2 to 3 lots for one single family home. Now this developer is trying to take one of these little lots and split it into 3 ways and put it into a neighborhood. This is not the character of the neighborhood, and it will completely change the whole atmosphere of this area. So we are totally against it.
Anything else?
Thank you. Joe, is there anybody else that's raised their hand for any public testimony?
Well,
Carol, do you mind muting your?
They're replatting it. They're not dividing it. Say that.
They're not adding it. They're dividing it.
They're not dividing it. They're replatting it.
They're replatting it. They're not dividing it.
They're creating new
non-conforming lots. They're
creating
the non-conforming lots.
They are creating new non-conforming lots.
Are there any others that are for public testimony?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead at this point in time, close the public testimony, please.
Mr. Chairman, can I rebut, please, just for a moment?
Yeah. So now we're coming back to you to talk about some of the comments that were made by the public.
Okay. First, the code violations. There's no structure on the current property, so any code violations is a moot point because there's nothing that's developed there. As far as ethics, again, there's no structure there. Any ethical complaints, I'll let Patty and her staff speak to that, from whom the public is referring most of their complaints to. Now, you guys can probably do a closed hearing for that or speak offline about that. And to her point, these houses are on narrow lots. But to her point, this isn't an exclusive neighborhood. This is inclusive. This buying pool is for folks who can afford these houses. If we start building $275,000, $300,000 houses, no one's going to be able to live over there. I yield. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any comments from the commission on this particular case?
Is this in the Red Bridge area?
It's north of Red
Yes.
Bridge.
It is in the Red Bridge area, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that if looking at what most of the homes look like, I have a really hard time getting behind this project. If I had bought a home there 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the expectation driving around to the average home buyer is not that you'd have the understanding that your lot that you buy, which is maybe a combination of 3 previously, and that all the homes look contiguous. You would not have the expectation, nor should you, that there might be someone who purchases a vacant lot next to you and puts 3 houses right next to each other. I don't want to talk to the whether I like the idea of 3 smaller houses at a really good price point. Like I think that there's a place for that for sure, but I don't think we should be creating 3 waivers to have 5 feet in between 2 homes when that is a factor of 10 different from some of the homes that are on that same street. And again, I would encourage all the other commissioners to look at just the other homes in that neighborhood. If there's going to be an approach to increasing density, I think it needs to be part of a greater plan, a greater approach. I don't think that we should be choosing just this one particular corner where I don't feel as though the neighbors have had a good enough chance to understand what might be happening. And I do think at the very least, I would want to move for a continuance.
I would have to disagree. I think as someone who's kind of been involved in housing conversations, we're at a really like a breaking point when it comes to housing affordability, even for single family homes. And I think these are the tough conversations we need to have. And I do think that these type of homes can fit in a mixed neighborhood. And I personally would like to see more of it and even kind of mid-level density throughout these neighborhoods. And I respect the neighbors' concerns, but looking forward on kind of the economy of who can actually buy a home and who can live in the city, I think it's really critical that we move forward on these type of projects and support developers who are building on historical lots that are more environmentally sustainable and increased density. Even if it's just a family or 2 here and there, I think it's really critical that we make these interventions in the neighborhoods.
Respectfully, I think you're conflating lifestyle and affordability. If you look at a map of that area, there are plenty of homes that are more affordable than what they're building and what the 3 homes that they built sold for. So I'm okay with an argument of saying density is important. These new modern homes are something that are going to have a really nice lifestyle and that are going to change the nature of this neighborhood. But to say that they are creating more affordable homes in this neighborhood is not accurate.
Commissioner Enders, can I respond to that directly?
I'm sorry, we've already closed public testimony, so.
Chairman Crow, I'm a part of the applicant team.
Oh. I know.
Okay. If I may respond, I'd love to. If not, I understand.
This is Commissioner Hill. I would support Commissioner Enders in a continuance if that is a motion that's pleasing to the commissioners.
Yeah, Commissioner Allen, I'd also like to understand, there seems to be a difference of opinion between legal and planning staff too. So I'd like to understand how that is going to be sorted out before we do a vote and understand what the implications of that is.
I agree. I feel like there's a couple things happening here. One is the disconnect between what is a waiver or variance, and then also I think just giving the neighborhood a little bit more time. I completely agree with a lot of Commissioner Baker's comments about adding a different level of housing type into this mix. I think we sort of need to rethink about what is contextual, and maybe contextual isn't always exactly what you see there. And I think particularly given the weight of historic precedent, I think that's what really makes me feel as if, if this is how this neighborhood was originally designed, originally platted, I put some weight into that also because that level of density provides a much more sustainable growth for Kansas City. And if you look at the infrastructure and the lack of curbs or sidewalks or anything in that neighborhood, that's because of the extremely low density and spread out single family in those areas. So I agree with all those sentiments, but I also feel as if the neighborhood needs a little more time to work through that with the developer. And I also want to make sure we're on the right track in terms of how we classify it from a waiver or variance.
If this were an older neighborhood and we saw a lot of New Orleans style row houses, or if it was, you know, a different city or a different part of the city where we saw a bunch of historic row houses, it would be easier to say, of course, we should honor the way this was originally platted. But it never came to fruition. You know, based upon the homes that have survived till now, that vision never came to be. And so I think that the more recent history of the homes that were built in the mid-century and in the past 50 years is probably more relevant to what the nature of this neighborhood is and the way that those neighbors feel about it. The people who moved there didn't move there because they liked that there were all these individual really tiny lots and they saw this vision of row homes. And while I do want to live in a place that looks more like what you guys are describing in the future, I don't think we can force that onto people right now just because they you know, might not have been able to voice their opinion today.
Okay. Mr. Rojas, you have any comments?
Allow the neighborhood to the short time that they're requesting to make their case.
And okay. And Commissioner Beasley?
I agree that we have the two issues that we need to have addressed. So I would grant a continuance without fee as well.
Okay. So there's been a request by to delay it to the 21st meeting. And I'm just kind of curious from the applicant, if it is continued, whether the 21st or maybe the 7th would be better. You know, it seems like there's a lot of discussion and maybe some discussion needs to be had with the staff.
Are you saying the 21st of July or the 7th of July? I'm confused on those dates.
It'd be July 7th or the 21st.
If it's going to be continued, I actually hope for the 7th.
This is Joe here. So I can speak to some of the disagreement that was referenced, and it's not Sarah or Patty. It's no one's to fault here. There's actually an amendment that you continue today related to all the waivers and modifications and deviations and variances, what could be referred to as methods of relief in the code. And we're trying to clean it up because frankly, it's pretty dang messy. So it can be very confusing for staff or the applicant to understand what procedural vehicle is the right one to grant those methods of relief. And in this case, if the applicant is seeking deviations to lot and building standards, traditionally the only methods of relief available to an applicant for that are, or not traditionally, in the code, the only methods of relief are variances or through a development plan as granted by the city council. So if this board's going to continue the case, which is probably a good idea, we need to do it. You need to give us enough time to get the applicant to file a development plan application so it could be advertised as such. We'd have to publish notice for that. July 7th would be too soon. It would have to be July 21st for that.
Okay. Sounds like an unfortunate circumstance here. So with that, can I get a motion?
I'll move that we move to July the 21st.
Okay.
Continue.
So I got a motion to continue docket item 19 to the 21st without a fee.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the commission? Seeing none. Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Okay, so sounds like the motion approves to continue the case for further discussion to the July 21st meeting. And Mr. Brown, if you don't mind getting with Patty on that to talk about what needs to happen between now and then. It sounds like a site plan needs to be prepared so that you have that, and also probably a discussion with the Center Planning and Development Council probably should take place as well before you come back. So I appreciate your time today, and look forward to seeing you again here in a couple of weeks.
Thank you all for time.
Thank you.
Chairman Crow, can you hear me better?
Oh, that's a lot better.
So guess what I had done? My mouthpiece was up toward my head. It wasn't down by my mouth. I'm like, well, why can't they hear me?
And you told us all that?
So I'm back in snuff. Okay.
All right. So Joe, we're on case 27.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, 2 left.
Yep. So 27 has 3 companions, starting with 27.1, case number CPC 2020-00031. Request to approve a preliminary plat in District M1-5 to create 2 lots and 2 tracts on 90 acres located at the northeast corner of North Pleasant Avenue and Missouri Route 210. Docket item 27.2, case number CPC 2020-00087. Request to approve a project plan in District M1-5 to allow for a 700,000 square foot office warehouse development on 2 lots on about 90 acres at the same location. And docket item 27.3, case number final plat 2020-00014. Request to approve a final plat for the same. Olafur Agbaji, staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Chair, Olafur Agbaji, City Planning and Development. This next 3 companion cases located up the northeast portion of town. First one is a preliminary plat to subdivide a lot. Second one is a project plan to request approval of a building on those 2 lots. And then the third one is a final plat. Would like to promote Brett Hoagland, Continental Engineering. Also in the crowd will be Brett Powell and Derek Schoenberg. These are both from North Point Development. The site, as you can see where my arrow is pointing, is at the easternmost section of town, just off the southwest corner of, or northwest corner of 210 and 291 highway. There's a closer look at the site. Missouri River is further south. This is the Northland Industrial Park, and I'll give you a quick history on it. The area to be developed today and preliminary platted is where my arrow is pointing. Tenants within the Northland Park is FedEx, where my arrow is, and FedEx, musician friends, and this is R&L Carrier, and up to the northwest part of the site is the Triple Crown Intermodal Mixing Facility. So this is where vehicles from Claycomo plant are put on railroad, and then just a mixing facility for logistics. We have grinders down to the south on 210. The 2 major streets is just Kimball, Pleasant, and then northeast 41st Street going through the site. This is the proposed 90 acres that's been requested for preliminary plat today. I'll just go through, I did this real quick, so rather than, Northland Park was approved back in 1980 when 2,200 acres was rezoned from District RA to District M2 AP. Existing building square footage is 6.5 million square feet within the park today. I just told you Grangers, FedEx, musician friends are the current main anchors. The current development plan approved by ordinance 090898 allowed for up to 2.3 million square feet of office within phase 6, which is where this project is. The park is also within the Birmingham Levy District, so it's under their jurisdiction. Northland, North Point development in the last, I want to say, 4 or 5 years has developed the buildings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and today's request is for the last 2, which will be the final parcel to be developed within this park. So, and this is 90 acres. It's the last parcel in the park. I showed you the prior buildings, and this is to create 2 lot and 1 track to allow for 2 buildings, which would total 700,000 square feet. And these are just logistic buildings, warehouse office buildings, similar to the ones they have now. So this is building 7 and building 8 with a private drive serving both buildings to extend utilities to that as a preliminary plat. The first phase of this development will be construction of building 8, and that's again the same warehouse building. This is a regular tilt-up precast building, similar to what North Point has developed within the park. With that, staff's recommendation is for approval of the preliminary plat subject to the 19 conditions, approval of the project plan subject to the 17 conditions, and approval of the final plat subject to the 14 conditions. That ends my report, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are any questions by the commission to Olufu? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and welcome the applicant to the meeting.
Bear with me, I'm trying to do it right now.
Okay.
Brett, you should be able to speak now.
Yeah, Mr. Hoagland, when you take yourself off mute, please provide your name and address, please.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm off mute and you can see me now. This is Brett Hoagland with Continental Consulting Engineers, 9000 State Line Road, Leawood, Kansas. Worked with Olufu over the last 4 to 5 years on the previous 6 buildings. This will be the 7th of the total 8. We really have no issues with the staff report. We have one comment we'd like to make, and that is in reference to one of the staff reports comments from the Land Development Division on the access road that serves both buildings 7 and 8. In the staff report, it identifies it as a public road, to be a public road, but we want it to be just a private access road that serves both buildings. We've tried to get in communication with Stacy Lowe. We've also talked with Travis Kiefer and Lucas Casper on this issue, and I think the staff is okay with that, but we definitely want that to be just a private access road, similar to what we've done for building 5 and 6.
Can you remind us what number of condition that is and which section?
Yeah, that would be 28.2, item 1A.
Okay.
We would just, there's really 2 lots and 2 tracks. And on the plat, track B is that access private utility easement tract. We would like for that language just to state that track B shall be a private access and utility easement that will serve both buildings 7 and 8.
Okay.
Right, yeah, that's it, right there.
Olufu, any thoughts on that?
The reason he mentioned Travis Kiefer is that Water Services Department would like this to be a private main. And I think they've gone down the route of doing a private main. They have 2 lift stations off this tract. So I don't think water wants to be in the business of handling lift stations and private mains. So
That's correct. It's a private sanitary sewer force main along with a private water main extension. And that access road, we would like for it also to be just a private access road.
Okay. Is all that spelled out in the conditions, Olafu?
This was just a correction to the plan. And
okay.
If we remove that correction, I think it should be okay.
Okay.
What number was that, Brett?
28.2, item 1A.
Okay.
Okay, is there any questions from the commissioners for the applicant?
I had a question about parking. So it looks like you have 456 parking spaces compared to the 140 that were required. And then in addition, you have 175 truck parking spaces. Can you speak to why you need so many parking spaces relative to the minimum? I know oftentimes people exceed the minimum, but that seems like quite a lot.
The user has requested that, and we know that there's a minimum requirement, but not necessarily a maximum requirement, but the user of that facility has requested that.
Okay. It's just unfortunate to have that much parking.
Yeah, understand.
Understand that, but to me, it sounds like a lot of jobs, so, which is good.
Yeah.
I guess I just was curious how many parking spaces there were per employee, or if that.
We don't really have that information as total employees at the moment. And it can vary because sometimes these buildings are built prior to having them fully, all the tenants identified. And so when the tenant is more identified, they want to make sure that they do have adequate parking. And it's pretty consistent with all the other buildings out there.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, Joe, let's open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone on the call that would like to speak on behalf of docket items 27.1, 2, or 3?
I don't see anyone who's raised their hand, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So let's go ahead and close public testimony. Any other comments from the applicant? So hearing none, we'll close the meeting down to just a commission for discussion, if any. If not, I will take a motion for this case. Cases.
A motion to vote them all in one package.
Okay. So I have a motion for approval of docket item 27.1 with the 19 conditions, 27.2 for the 17 conditions, and 27.3 with the 14 conditions, and removing 1A from 27.2.
So moved.
Correct.
28.2.
Okay. Or 28.2. Yeah, sorry. So I've got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Crowell,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
and Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so the project has been unanimously approved. Good luck with your project, Mr. Hoagland.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for your patience today. So I think last but not least, right, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I don't know, I do not see the applicant. But staff is recommending approval without conditions on this one. He does meet all the standards and requirements, so we can move forward.
Okay.
I wonder if Paul Osborne, wasn't his group involved in this project at one point? Paul, are you representing on this case? Or do I have it totally wrong?
Hey, see if he can talk. Can
Or
you
there's
unmute
someone
him?
named Derek Schoenberg too.
That was for the last case. Derek was for the last case. This was Melissa Brown, Hollis Miller, and this is a request by Park Hill School District for council-approved signage plan to allow for digital signage within the school, which requires a council-approved plan, and they do meet all the requirements. And I can give it to you in less than a minute.
You want to move forward if we don't have the applicant, Mr. Chair?
She was on since 9, so she was on today.
I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and move on with the case because I don't think this is a big one that's
okay.
Create a lot of issues. So,
all right. Docket 28 is case number CPC 2020-00081. Request for proof of council approved sign plan in District R80 and R7.5 to allow for new school digital signage pursuant to Section 88-445-11E on 93 acres located on the north side of Northwest 68th Street and Northwest Wacomish Drive between North Coventry Avenue on the east and North Robinson Lane on the west. Olufeg Baji, staff planner.
Thank you, Joe. This next case again is located just off 169 and Wacomish. The school is right where the arrow is, and 69th Street is on the bottom. Wacomish comes through the site, and surrounding land uses, as you can see, Berry Road, 152, 169, and 29. This is the new Park Hill School District Line Creek campus with Line Creek Parkway extending up to the new school. This is a rough layout of what both school, Hopewell Elementary, has been constructed and occupied, and we approved digital signage for Hopewell last year. So this request is for digital signage for what's the lead innovation campus. So the proposed signage will be located about 550 feet off this traffic circle of Line Creek, not Line Creek Parkway, and it will be on the drive. This sign is strictly for schools, informing schools, parents, and just giving them directions and just school information. It's not visible from any residences or even the Line Creek Parkway. It is 550 feet from. The minimum requirement for the location of a digital signage within a residential district is 100 feet. So this does meet that requirement. The sign is about 17.5 square feet. The maximum sign allowed is 32 square feet. So they do meet that. The maximum height allowed is 6 feet. They are 5.4 feet. As a result, staff's recommendation of this is for approval without conditions because they do meet all the intent of Chapter 88-445-11-E. And I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Olufu. Any commissioners have questions for staff on this case? Okay, seeing none. The applicant's not available, which is okay because of the case itself.
Yeah, and this will be advanced to City Council, who will then take the final action on approving this.
Okay, so I'm opening it up for any public testimony. Assume we have none.
I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay. So at this time, we'll close the public testimony and leave it to the commission for any discussion, or I'll take a motion.
Chair Crowell, I move that docket item 28 be approved without conditions.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Lisa, do you mind taking roll call, please?
Commissioner Allender,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Beasley,
Aye.
Prowl,
Aye.
Enders,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Sadowski.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion approves case docket item number 28 has been approved. And that concludes all of our cases for the day. And hopefully here we're getting close to closing up the meeting. So just some items here. We're looking at a training session a week from today on the 28th. I think there are some items on the agenda that have been suggested. Do you have those handy, Joe? Because I can pull them up here.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Let's see.
Do you want me to just rattle off the topics?
Yeah, just rattle off. There's 5 of them there.
Yeah, so this is meant to be kind of in summary of what we've heard people ask questions of most frequently. So some general information about city stormwater policies from water services staff. That one, we need to work more with water services to get them to attend, and just next Tuesday is probably too soon. So we do plan to have someone come in and talk to you, but it just won't be next Tuesday. Number 2 is the park impact fee and dedication requirements. Number 3 is the arterial street impact fee. Number 4 is the CPC's rules and regulations, which are like bylaws that apply to the commission. And number 5 is a development process Q&A, where we'll kind of hit the very high level parts of the development process and let you guys dive in for more detail, and we can try to answer those questions.
Okay. So we got those, 4 items that we'd like to talk about initially, and then the stormwater being the 5th one down the road. So I've got an hour reserved for that. I hope that's enough time for everybody. If we go a little bit long, I think that's okay. But just want to remind you about that. And see, I think our next meeting is on July 7th. Is there going to be anybody gone because of 4th of July holiday on that, or do you think you all will be back for that? Kind of looks like, I just want to make sure we have a quorum.
Is that going to be virtual, or are we trying to shoot for in person?
Well, so I've been talking to Director Williams and Joe as well. I mean, if they push it, they might be able to have it in person, but I really think that we'll likely have the 2nd meeting in July in person. So our next meeting will be more than likely virtual. There's some details and logistics to work out, which trying to give the experience of the virtual meeting and the in-person meeting, so everybody's seeing the same thing and is having the same experience. So I think you're getting close to getting that figured out. And then how do we address the public testimony as well? Because I think we also want to offer the virtual and the live meeting with the commission and those for public testimony.
Yeah, it seems evident to us based upon everything we're hearing from people, Zoom is going to be permanent, even though we will move back to the chamber.
Yeah, so that sounds like a lot of fun for Sarah to update the rules and regulations to make that happen as well.
Chairman Crowell?
Yeah.
While we have everyone, I sent it late last night, and I don't expect people to have had time to look at it. But I had one question for all the other commissioners and for Joe, wondering if people wanted to consider amending the rules and regs so that way Joe could table or continue something without it having to come through us. I was just doing some quick math. I think we saved about 40 minutes today by bundling all of our continuances. And I think we'd save an extra 20 minutes if, when it makes sense, we gave the authority back to Joe to continue things when the applicant wants it to be continued and staff is okay with it, meaning it's just one less thing that we're doing. So we're spending more time devoting it to the issues that we're voting on.
Well, I'm in favor of that if staff can do that. It seems like when applicants turn in their paperwork, they're anticipating to hit the 45 days down the road, a certain date of which it gets before the commission. And there are times that when they get their conditions back, they're a little bit more than what they anticipate, or there's something that they've got to work out that they didn't know. And they don't know that until right before the meeting. But it still has to come through the commission, from what I understand, just to continue the thing. Maybe Joe,
Yeah, or even if they know, like we send our comment letter, usually they get their first comments about 3 to 4 weeks prior to planning commission, well, maybe 3 weeks. And timing wise, we've already advertised the case. And when we advertise it, we have to docket it. And it has, and I don't know, Sarah might have to look into whether or not it's even legally possible for staff to continue a case after it's been docketed.
That's exactly what I want to change. So I want to change the rules and regs that allows it after it's been docketed for you to go ahead and continue it if the applicant comes to continue it. And so the problem is that you might have people show up to the meeting, expect to be able to speak on something. However, most of the time we end up not letting people speak about it anyway because we want to continue it. And so I think I was trying to think about it holistically from, someone from the public seeing that it's been docketed. It's showing up to the meeting and finding out that it's been removed at the very beginning might actually be the most respectful of their time overall. And so I couldn't, because our experience is so shallow, I couldn't think of examples where it would really hurt the applicant or hurt the process or hurt someone from the public. But I do think it would end up giving you a little bit more control to do that and alleviate the docket load.
We can talk about that next week when we talk about the rules. We can talk, and we can try to send them out in advance too. If you guys, they're on our website. I know we provided a link to that, but if you guys want me to send you another link to the rules, I can do that again.
Okay.
So our training session is 6:28 or what time? Is that what I understand?
It's actually the 23rd. It's a week from today at 9 a.m. We'll send out a meeting. We realize that's not on your calendars. We'll send out another meeting invite for that one since it's a special meeting.
Yeah, and you actually had to post it, don't you, Joe, that we're getting together?
Yes, it'll be a public hearing.
Okay.
Public meeting.
And Sarah, I'll forward this email to you. It's just highlighting, or I'll actually try to clean it up before I forward it to you. But I think it's just Article 5, paragraph B3. I think it'd be a very easy amendment that we could make, that we could all vote on. And I think based upon my reading, we'd be able to do that.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So if there's nothing else, anybody else like to discuss anything right now?
I just wanted to express maybe a concern if we ever think that we're going to go past a certain time. My guess is that some people probably have to fall off around 5 o'clock. I'm thinking from the applicant standpoint that we kind of make that clear, maybe around 4 or 5 who's not going to be here, or if we need to shift people earlier because they do need to drop off. My guess is that's probably what happened on the last one, and I just want to be respectful of the applicant, that they don't feel concerned that we went ahead without them, or worry that we weren't able to move forward because they couldn't rearrange their dinner schedule or whatnot. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion about time, because the other thing about time is the meeting took all day long. And so there's some people sitting on the call waiting their turn and didn't know that they didn't have to sit here for the first half of the day. What we've done in the past and earlier commission days is actually set a time as to when we would hear a case. So that way the applicant knows, okay, well, I don't need to be there till 10:15. So I'll show up at that time. There's still the challenge with that. If the commission is is ahead of schedule and we're ready to hear their case at 9:45, we can't. We got to wait till 9 or 10:15 for them, to be there, because that's what time we docketed their case. But that's something I think Joe and Sarah and I will probably talk about to see how we could best do that, because we want to be, as we're doing this more and more, we're getting more efficient. And I think the cases, as the day went on, became more efficient, and everybody's understanding what's going on. So we got better as the day went on. So I can only see that improving. But if we need to start putting a time on there, what's the best way to do that? We need to kind of figure that out to be respectful of the applicant's time for the meetings.
Yeah, and maybe it's even like a window, like the cable guy is coming between 2 to 4 or whatever, but they have a slot that gives them a sense.
Sure.
So do we send them a notice as to when their case is scheduled?
Yeah, that's the difficulty in all this is we have to, if we do docketed times, we have to, the mailed notice, the published note, all the public hearing notices have to specify that time. So that people know when, so that people, if it says 9:30 and they join at 9:30, we haven't already decided their case that they're interested in.
Yeah.
So since we've said Zoom will be a permanent fixture, it sounds like we need to figure out how we can include comments on being able to come to the Zoom meeting at a certain window when you send out that mailing, as opposed to them sitting all day on Zoom or sitting all day when we were in person. So is that something that we need to address, as well as when you send out the actual notice and posting, how we could word it?
I think what you're asking, it would be addressed on the notices that go out to the public, but also on the agenda, the docket, as it gets posted for every meeting. Each case would have a time on it as to when it would be heard, or the earliest it would be heard. So whoever's planning to attend the planning commission meeting for a specific case, they could look at the agenda itself and say, okay, so case 9 is going to be, the earliest it'll be heard would be 11:15. So then they wouldn't have to show up until 11 to make sure that they heard it.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Which takes us back to what Ashley has said. You give them a
right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do want to express support for is, I believe it's in the same email that you sent out, Commissioner Enders, is just maybe the hyperlink with the docket that has just those materials inside. I mean, even with the PDF, when we jump across cases, I'm spending time going back to find that, pull things out. And so I get the printing, I'll do my own printing costs, but when we have so many cases, we just need a quick way to pull those items up. And I think the hyperlink for a case that has just those staff reports would be great.
So I think, when you download the whole document, there are bookmarks for each of the cases. Are you looking for even more bookmarks or links to certain pages within the staff report?
Yeah, maybe it's my Mac, but when I'm downloading it, when you say bookmark, tell me, what do you mean by bookmark? Are you meaning the title page, or I can click through?
Yeah, so when you download the whole PDF, there's a section within the PDF, you hit the bookmarks, and you can actually click each individual case and it'll go right to that point within that big PDF.
Okay. I'll spend time with it to find out how to do that, because when I download it, I get all of it, and I have like a bookmark side where I can swipe through, and it's just the title page that I know that's a new.
Yeah, so when you hit the bookmark and it says like case 9, and you hit the book that item on the bookmark, you'd left click on that, it'll take you right to case 9.
Yeah, on the digital side, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
If they're already packaged in discrete cases and you already have a folder, Joe, that like you have to compile and you can just share that folder, that would be useful for printing if someone wanted to print 3 cases, because often, a ton of the cases, I don't feel the need to print, but there are a few cases that you really want to print instead of trying to count through and scroll through. In theory, then, and it might not be worth your time and energy, but in theory, it'd be really easy to select the 5 cases you want to print and print them. But I don't mean to create extra work, but I'm with Kokithia in that I sometimes like that physical case.
So I go in and print page numbers. I don't download anything, but when I pull it up and look at it and look at the page numbers that I'm looking at, then I print those page numbers.
Yeah, I think I was just being lazy.
I don't print the whole document.
No, you're totally right. It's very doable to scroll and count. I was just being lazy. But if it already exists, then I was thinking that it might make sense. But if it doesn't already exist, it's not worth creating.
Okay.
You can go to it on the bookmarks and go to the specific case you want to print.
Yeah.
In the PDF.
And I guess I would ask maybe, I would ask Lisa, let's maybe next week during the training or the work session, just demo what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So they can see how to do it. I do think it appears a little differently depending on the type of machine and the type of, whether you're using like Adobe products or something else to open the document in.
Okay.
I promise y'all I'm a little tech savvy, but it's just not coming up for me. But happy to be walked through.
Well, wait till you get in person and you're issued a tablet to look through all of it.
Oh my, I'm staying home. That screen's too little. I'm staying home.
All right. So
I like the 2 monitors.
Yeah. If there's nothing else, motion to end the meeting.
So moved.
All right. Great seeing everybody. Good discussion. Glad we got through the whole agenda. We'll see each other Tuesday, if not before.
Thanks
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.